I never thought my life would change on a night when I couldn't even feel my fingers anymore. That's the thing, people don't tell you about the cold. It stops hurting right before it becomes dangerous. I was sitting on a cracked bench near the edge of Riverside Park, hood pulled low, trying to convince myself I was just resting, not slowly shutting down. 22 years old, no phone, no place to sleep. Stomach empty long enough that hunger had turned into this dull, hollow calm. I remember thinking if I can just make it to sunrise, I'll figure something out. Funny how many times I told myself that. Yeah, that was my big plan. That's when I heard a voice behind me. Soft, shaky, confused. "Michael, is that you?" I almost didn't turn around. When you live on the street, you learn fast that attention isn't usually a good thing, but something in her voice made me look. She was an elderly woman, thin as a shadow, standing there without a coat, snow collecting in her white hair like it didn't belong to her at all. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide with relief, and before I could say a word, she rushed forward and wrapped her arms around me. "Oh, thank God," she cried into my shoulder. "I finally found you." Every muscle in my body went tight. My first thought wasn't compassion, it was survival. Who is this? What does she want? But then I felt her hands through my jacket, colder than the air itself, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. That wasn't an act. Whatever was happening, this woman truly believed I was someone else. "I'm not Michael," I said gently, my voice rough from not speaking all day. "My name's Evan." She didn't hear me. Or maybe she couldn't. She pulled back just enough to look at my face, her hands cupping my cheeks, her eyes unfocused, drifting like she was trying to look through fog. I knew that look. My dad had worn it near the end when his mind started slipping, when yesterday and 30 years ago blended together into one confusing mess. "You're freezing," she said, worried. "Why are you out here? Why didn't you come home?" Her knees suddenly buckled and instinct took over. I caught her under the arms before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing, paper light. Her body trembled violently, then leaned into me like she trusted me with her life. The park around us was empty, snow falling heavier now. Streetlights flickering like they were tired too. No one else was coming. No one even knew we were there. I helped her sit on the bench and sat beside her, pulling her close, wrapping one arm around her shoulders, trying to share what little warmth I had left. I asked her name. After a long pause, she whispered, "Helen Carter." I asked where she lived. She smiled sadly and said, "With my son." Then she looked at me again and called me Michael. She studied my face like she was seeing something precious. "You look so thin," she said. "Are you eating enough?" That question hit harder than anything else that night. When was the last time someone had looked at me with concern instead of suspicion? I lied and said I was fine. She didn't believe me. She started fumbling with her purse hand, stiff and clumsy from the cold, and finally pulled out a thick fold of cash and pressed it into my hands. "Take it," she said urgently. "You need it more than I do." I won't pretend I didn't want it. My fingers curled around that money before my brain could stop them. That cash meant food warmth, maybe a cheap motel room where I could sleep without worrying about freezing or getting robbed. Every logical part of me screamed to keep it. Anyone watching would have understood. But then I heard my dad's voice in my head, clear as day. Something he told me before everything fell apart. Don't let being desperate turn you into someone you don't recognize. He used to say that character shows up when no one's keeping score. So I took a breath, opened her purse, and put the money back. Slowly, carefully, like it mattered. Because it did. For just a second, something shifted in her expression. The fog lifted. She looked straight at me, really saw me, and asked, "What's your name, young man?" "Evan," I said. She nodded. "Why are you here, Evan?" "I don't have anywhere else to go." Her hand squeezed mine. "I'm sorry." Then her eyes drifted again, her body sagging against me. She stopped shivering. That's when panic hit. Anyone who's been around hypothermia knows what that means. I shook her gently, called her name, begged her to stay awake. She murmured something about her husband, about dinner, about being late. Time was folding in on itself inside her head. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't leave her alone to find help. So I made a choice. I stood up, legs screaming in protest, and lifted her onto my back. She barely reacted, her arms hanging loosely over my shoulders. "Hold on," I told her, not even sure she could hear me. "I've got you." The nearest hospital was about 12 blocks away. I knew the route because I'd walked past it 100 times, always telling myself I'd go there if things ever got really bad. Turns out, this was really bad. The first few blocks were pure willpower. Snow blew sideways, slicing through my jacket like it wasn't there. My legs felt weak, rubbery every step a negotiation. I slipped once, went down on one knee, caught myself before she slid off my back. I kept talking mostly to myself, promising we were almost there, promising I wouldn't quit. By block 8, my vision started tunneling. The world pulsed at the edges like someone was dimming the lights. My breath burned, going in and out. I fell again, harder this time, twisting my body so she wouldn't hit the ground. Pain shot through my shoulder, but it barely registered. Block 10 was where my body finally said no. My knee buckled completely, and I went down in the snow, still holding on to her, still trying to keep her head off the ground. I tried to shout for help, but my voice came out as nothing more than air. I remember thinking, this is it. I tried. I really did. Then headlights cut through the storm. A car slowed, then stopped. A door flew open and a man ran toward us shouting, "Mom! Mom!" His voice cracked with panic and relief all at once. Strong hands pulled me back, checked her pulse, lifted her carefully. "Who are you?" he demanded, then saw my face, my condition, and his tone changed. "What happened?" "She was lost," I whispered. "Too cold. Needed the hospital." He nodded, once sharp and decisive. "We're going now. Both of you." That man was Thomas Carter. I didn't know it then, but he owned half the skyline downtown. Money, power, influence, all of it. What I knew was that he was terrified of losing his mother and grateful beyond words to a stranger who refused to walk away. At the hospital, everything blurred. Bright lights, nurses shouting, someone saying hypothermia. I remember asking one thing before passing out. "Is she okay?" When I woke up hours later, warm and hooked up to machines, Thomas was sitting in a chair beside the bed. First thing he said was, "My mother's stable, thanks to you." Then he hesitated. "There's something else. Her caregiver thinks you took money from her purse." I almost laughed. Almost. Of course she did. A homeless guy, young, broke, carrying an elderly woman through the snow. The story writes itself. I told him the truth, that she offered, that I refused. To his credit, he didn't argue. He checked the cameras, all of them. The footage showed everything. Helen offering the cash, me holding it, me putting it back. It also showed the caregiver stealing from her over weeks small amounts, counting on confusion to hide it. The caregiver was fired that morning. Thomas came back to my room, sat down, and said, "I'm sorry. I should have trusted you immediately. I didn't." That apology mattered more than anything else he could have offered. He paid my hospital bills, then he offered me a place to stay, a small guest house on his property. No contracts, no speeches, just you deserve a chance to breathe. I didn't trust it at first. I kept my backpack by the door, slept light, waiting for the catch. But days passed, then weeks, hot meals, warm showers, actual rest. His mother remembered me sometimes. Other times she called me Michael. I never corrected her. I just stayed. When Helen passed away months later, peacefully in her sleep, Thomas cried like a kid who'd finally slowed down enough to realize what he almost lost. At her funeral, I spoke. I told them she saved me as much as I saved her. Some people nodded. Some people looked uncomfortable. That was okay. After that, Thomas and I started something together. A small nonprofit at first. Transitional housing for young adults who fell through the cracks. He brought the money. I brought the lived experience. We argued sometimes. About rules, about trust, about how systems fail people before people fail systems. Those arguments made it better. 3 years later, I went back to Riverside Park. Same bench, same cold air. This time, I had a coat supplies and a phone that actually worked. I saw a kid sitting where I once sat, trying to disappear. I told him my story. Left a jacket beside him, walked away. An hour later, my phone rang. "I'm ready," he said. "And that's why I'm telling you this. Because kindness doesn't end with one good deed. It spreads, it challenges assumptions, it makes people uncomfortable. It forces questions about who we trust, who we judge, and who we're willing to leave behind. So, here's my question for you. If you'd been there that night, would you have assumed the worst about me? Or would you have waited for the truth, and how many times have you already decided someone's story without knowing a single chapter? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear where you stand on this, because justice, kindness, and prejudice aren't abstract ideas. They show up in moments like that when someone is freezing in the dark and you have to choose whether to stay or walk away.